And welcome to the Sunday Shale Show. My name is Mike Chadsey, and today I'm joined by Dan Petno and Steve Olson from CESO. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Good. Well, thanks for joining us. Before we get into our conversation, give me a 30-second bio on kind of who you are and what brought you here to the company.
Sure.
Steve?
Yeah. Steve Olson, and I'm actually the office manager here in our Canton office.
Okay.
Our company is actually headquartered in Dayton, but we opened our Canton office about a year and a half ago. And my experience is both in leading the office, but also in as an architect.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I'm Dan Petno. I'm a civil engineer, and I joined the company last summer in July. It's just been exciting to get on board with what's happening here in Ohio in the shale play here. Before that, I was in a company out of Cleveland and worked in predominantly the military market. So this has been a big shift and been real exciting to get involved in locally.
Good. Well, welcome to you both. Dan, tell me a little bit about when you mentioned sort of your background, a little bit of what you do here now. So obviously we're in Canton, what the mayor calls the Utica Shale capital of Ohio. What are some of the projects that you guys are working on now?
Well, initially we've been heavily involved in the upstream market with the development of the drill pads and the road work. We've also begun to diversify into midstream as well as some CNG, compressed natural gas vehicle station development and things like that. And I'll be able to share a little more about that. But really it's just been exciting to see how what started out with the upstream market completely has developed and been blossoming across the region.
Come from there, sure. Well, I guess that leads me, Steve, to my next question is how the heck a company from Dayton, Ohio, who moves dirt and plans and things like that, ends up in Stark County in the oil and gas industry. Can you take me from point A to point B on that one?
Yeah, I'll try that. And it's a very good question. I guess to take you back, our company's roots are with a small company called Walmart. And,
heard of them?
Yeah, Walmart. And so with our experience with Walmart, we've had a lot of experience with townships and counties throughout Ohio, and really developed an expertise in trying to be aware of their needs as well as represent the client's needs and to a successful completion of the project. And about a year and a half ago, we understood how oil and gas was going to be emerging into Ohio, and attended some Ohio Township Association meetings and some UGA events. And during that process, we've been able to build a relationship with Chesapeake, and in an effort to support their needs, we've made the commitment to open this Canton office. And essentially what started with a couple folks from Dayton and then finding local talent, we've now have almost 40 people here. So, and that's both for survey and for civil engineering and for architecture.
Okay, so CESO does all three. They're engineers, surveyors, and architecture.
That's right.
Is their business pretty equally divided among the three, or do you kind of focus on one more than the other, or is it?
Well, it's not equally divided right now, but that leads me to the point of why oil and gas is so exciting for us. We're invested in it because we realize that it is an economic engine for Ohio, and so we see that it's going to have kind of a compounding effect in the future years, and that's why we wanted to invest in architecture. Development is going to occur, and housing is going to be needed, and restaurants are going to get built, and so we see the long-term diversification strategy behind oil.
Well, that makes sense, and that's exactly what's so cool and what's so interesting that's happening now is that what is happening today is going to have long-term and positive effects, not only in Canton or Stark County, but really all of Ohio, because of not only the supply chain, but the direct benefit because of oil and gas development. And that's what's so neat, is to watch this train move down the tracks over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, Dan, I mean, when you have a project with a particular company that you work with and you move into a township, I mean, what are some of the challenges that you see working with a township trustee, a county commissioner, maybe a county engineer? How do you work those, what do you see with those folks?
I think one of the big challenges for any company that's coming in that we're working with is they don't know the local lay of the land. So they come in, back to the Walmart analogy, Walmart's a big company doing something repeatedly in a small community. So being able to take that model and our company, and again, I've got to join a bunch of great quality folks that have this history of understanding what it takes to do the permitting and do the civil engineering and things like that in a small community. We're able to help our clients come in a quality way. They're very conscientious about doing it right, not impacting the community, except in a positive way.
Sure. Well, that's a perfect transition, Steve, to really my next question is, as you do these work for these oil and gas companies, whether that's here or anywhere else in Ohio, and managing those expectations and preventing anything from happening, talk a little bit about how you work with these companies to make sure that human health and safety are always protected, and that's always in the forefront of your mind. What is it that you do for these companies to make sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to?
Sure. Now, with our 3 different service lines, we have folks that are going to touch the project in various ways. You know, a lot of our civil engineers will be out in the field assessing a strategy for our designs, but then they'll be primarily back in the office. But as a company, the culture is definitely made a significant shift towards safety, especially when you think about our surveyors who are out in the field, and they may be on an active well site, or they may be on just a future planned well site. But between the company's master service agreements and our requirements to match up with what their needs are for the PPE equipment, you know, fire retardant clothing, any OSHA training that we might need before we're out there, or any of the other proprietary training that they require. We're certainly investing in that because it's the right thing to do and for our employees' safety.
Well, that's perfect, because you have to make sure that everybody's taken care of. So,
Yeah.
really, the next question for that, along that same kind of lines, is maybe you're in John Q. Public's backyard, and Farmer John's, maybe he's got a squirrel or a bat, or there's always words out there from the folks who really enjoy nature, and I think we all probably do. I mean, is there a bat or a squirrel or a duck or something you always have to be mindful of here in Ohio that you don't want to disturb any habitats or anything?
Yeah. Well, we're certainly mindful of that. I'm not going to pretend that I have the answers to those, but we've recently made the investment to bring a full-time environmental person onto our staff to help us with that. A lot of times we will partner with other environmental companies in the area, and really we just wanted to make sure that we had our own internal expertise to help keep our clients out of trouble and help make sure that we're doing it the right way.
Well, that's because no detail is too small, especially when it comes to, you know, the Ohio's precious environment, that everything is being taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's good that you guys are watching out for that and make sure everything's taken care of. So
we see our clients are very connected to that issue as well. They want to minimize any impact and be very responsible. As Steve said, we do have some key partners that we've worked with on that, and recognize that environmental component is a major component to satisfy not just the landowner, but ODNR and the other agencies that we're all invested in making sure this is done in a way that is successful.
So when you develop that pad, whether it's for your ABC company, it's what, about 5 acres or so? And then when it's all said and done, what does it come down to after that?
Well, we haven't seen it yet, but there will be a reclamation period after all the wells get drilled out on a particular pad. They'll actually reduce the footprint of that pad and to just the operations where it's being serviced by you know, their trucks and service personnel over the longer period of time. But that hasn't really happened yet. It's still
All of our wells are still producing and everything. But along the way, so the message really is that when that well is up and running, everything's moving along, that 5, 6, so many acres will be reduced down. And so what happens to that other 3 or 4 or 5 acres? What would happen to that?
It goes back to the landowner for their use. So the longer term, whether it's a farmer's field or a wooded area or what, they'll be able to return it to its original use.
Original content, and then be able to use it for whatever that was for. Okay. Well, really, I wanted to just thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. And if you had any final comments, put a nice little bow and wrap up this. And if you had anything else about the company you wanted to talk about, or maybe long-term projections about kind of where you are today and where your company's going and how we get there here in Ohio.
Well, I guess I would just say, to wrap it up, I'm excited about what oil and gas is going to do for Ohio. Both Dan and I have, you know, made a shift in our career, and it's pretty much using oil as a catalyst, but we also see that it's going to be an economic generator for the long term. Yeah. So we have as much of an interest as anybody in making sure it's done right, and so it's sustainable.
I agree. Dan, any final comments?
I would say, not that you haven't heard this, but we know this is just the beginning of this whole play, and to see the midstream companies come in, and as the pipelines and the processing plants start coming online, it's really going to be exciting. And as a Northeast Ohio guy, I'm very excited about what's happening in our backyard here.
Well, you
It's
guys
good
are
to be part of it.
getting in on the ground floor. If somebody want to learn about your company, is there a phone number, a website, somewhere we can point to them to
Yeah.
get some more information?
The best is our website. It's just www.ceso.